and welcome to In Full Bloom. This is a GBMC Women's Health podcast. It's our premiere edition, and I'm Mary Beth Marsden. I'm your host, and I'm also a sidekick to really the captain of our ship, who is Dr. Joan Blomquist, and she is the chair of the Department of Gynecology here at GBMC, and you have been championing women's health issues and health for women for almost 30 years here,
right,
and longer than that.
Yeah.
So this podcast is your baby. You really have been wanting to do this for a number of years. And when I first heard about it, I thought, wow, that's great, because I mean, for very selfish reasons, I'm all in, right? I can't get enough information about women's health. And I thought, wow, you're chairing a department, you perform surgery, you have patients, you have speeches to give and papers to write and research to research, and yet you still wanted to do this podcast. And I remember asking him, like, where do you find the time and why? Why was this important to you?
Yeah. Well, obviously, women's health care is my passion, and my family will attest that dinner conversations frequently go back to talking about women's health care, no matter what the other topics are, just because it's what I've lived and breathed for the last, I've been here for 30 years, but then training before that, so really the last 40 years of my life. And I think as physicians, we really have an obligation to share knowledge. And especially as you get more into leadership roles, that really is sort of part of what we should be doing. And so my goals of this is really that we educate so that we can empower women. And get the discussions going, and so that this, there are things that sometimes, especially in women's healthcare, that we really don't talk about because people don't have the knowledge, but they're also afraid to talk about it. So hopefully by doing this series of podcasts, we'll bring it out into the open so that people start talking.
I'm wondering, too, if you're also sort of, I don't know how much you look at social media. I'm sure here and there, right?
Yeah.
Or you get questioned about it, right? Patients will come in and ask you questions, and you think to yourself, that's not the right information, or where are they getting that from? And
Exactly.
So I'm wondering if a part of you is also saying, I think a voice of knowledge and a voice of experience needs to be out in the forefront.
Yeah, what we really want to promote is evidence-based information. And I think part of the reason there's so much conflicting information out there is that, maybe we haven't done as good of a job as the medical care providers of sharing our knowledge. And so people don't have a place to go. And so they do sometimes get information from other places that might not be accurate. So we hope really to be able to share evidence-based knowledge to really empower women.
As a medical professional, you could have gone into any line, right? And besides from being a woman yourself, what was it that drew you to women's health?
I think, as an OBGYN, so I initially did my training as my residency in obstetrics and gynecology for 4 years. And then I practiced general OBGYN for 4 years before I went back and did my fellowship in urogynecology. And really it was the whole reproductive thing, system. And it is amazing how it works. And I just have always been intrigued by the science of, how fertility occurs, and then how a uterus can go from being smaller than your fist to having a, sometimes 9-pound baby in there. And then 6 weeks later, it's back to that fist. And, how all of that science works is just intriguing to me.
Right. And also the miracle of birth, right?
Yeah,
It just
absolutely.
never ceases to amaze.
Yes, exactly.
Well, women's health is such a big, broad topic. And we were talking earlier about, we could talk about women's health on any number of issues for almost an infinity amount of time, right? So this podcast will be focusing on various topics each time, and we'll try and really kind of hone in on that. But today we're just sort of taking an overview about women's health and where we are from just sort of a broad perspective. How would you define women's health? I mean, if you were to kind of give a big...
Yeah. So I think, traditionally we think of women's health as being sort of sex and reproductive organs. So sort of bikini health of, covering just those areas. And that certainly is a big part of it. And a lot of, as gynecologists, what we treat are things that are very specific to women who have reproductive organs, such as endometriosis, fibroids, menopause, things like that. But it also encompasses the fact that women get some diseases differently than men. So, for example, colon cancer and liver cancer present differently in women, and they can be much more severe. but also things that impact women disproportionately. So 2/3 of patients who have Alzheimer's are women. And why is that? And we need to figure that out and learn from that. Rheumatoid arthritis is more common in women. A lot of autoimmune disorders are more common in women. So women's health encompasses all of that. So hopefully we can get some other experts here with us over the number of episodes to not just talk about gynecologic issues, but how it impacts other, women's health is more than that.
Yeah, and there's so many issues being raised about women's health, and sometimes it feels like, I think to a lot of women, that there are still so many more questions than answers.
Yes, yeah. There's definitely there's gaps in healthcare in general, but even more specifically in women's healthcare.
And when you say that, sort of like between women and men, but also between different women, right?
Right,
Of different
absolutely.
socioeconomic classes and so forth.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, the more barriers, can have a big impact on the gaps in care.
I don't want to go too far back in history, but you have a nice perspective on sort of the past 30, 50, 60 years. And different research that came out that sort of really impacted the trajectory of women's health and research when it comes to women, which has been woefully lacking for a number of years. Can you just talk a little bit about some of those?
Yeah. So if we really think back historically, there was a medication called thalidomide, which was taken by women usually in sort of around the early 1960s, and it was really meant to help morning sickness. So it could be really helpful for that. But then it became clear that it caused some birth defects and even fetal deaths. So that really scared researchers to think about,
and rightfully so.
Absolutely.
I mean, that was a real
absolutely.
tragedy.
Right. And so the NIH actually decided at that point that there's women who are of reproductive age should really be excluded from studies. And so for the next 20 years, we did not have women who were of reproductive age in any research studies because of that mandate. And then it became clear, okay, we might have gone too far because now we have only research on men, and so there are a lot of things that we don't understand about women and how hormone and the fluctuations throughout the cycle could impact how medications work differently, and that we really do have a different physiology, and that needs to be considered in research. And so then it was in the 90s that the NIH decided we need to change this and let's switch this around and start to include women. And then they had mandates by the mid 90s. But it's taken a long time to get that up there.
And it's not there yet.
Correct. Yeah. There was a study it was looking up to 2019, still showing that there's inadequate women in study. And we make up 50% of the population, but at least in the most recent analysis, women only represent 40% of research subjects.
Gosh, if you're a doctor for women specifically, I mean, sometimes it must feel like you're flying blind. I mean, almost like you're relying on the experience you have and the experience of other doctors, but there's not a lot of reference for you to turn to.
Yeah. And sort of another interesting aspect of research for women is it's tend to focus on those conditions that are more likely to kill you, higher mortality. So ovarian cancer has quite a bit of research, and it should, right? But then there's not as much research on those things that can cause disability. So PMS, menopause, endometriosis, all of,
the quality of life issues.
Absolutely, right. And so that's where there's a big gap in research and, a lot of need still on that because it impacts so many women.
Yeah, and you are seeing that pick up. I mean,
yes,
because women are demanding it?
That and, I think it's women demanding it and society in general.
And women in places of more power where they can sort of make it happen.
Right.
Especially if there's legality involved and so forth and legislation.
Yeah. And there have been, a number of, big groups who advocate. So the McKinsey is a consulting firm, and they have a health institute wing to their company. And they had a report that just came out last year looking at the women's health care gap. And sort of an interesting idea is we know women live longer, and so we think, okay, they must be healthier, right? But actually what this report showed is that women spend 25% more time in poor health than men do. And then you think, all right, that's maybe just the last 9 years or 12 years of their life, but it's really not. That time of poor health is between the ages of 20 and 60 is when it peaks for women. And so it's a lot of time when we
Wow.
should be productive members of society, and, women are having a lot of medical issues during that
So
time.
what, like, when you say poor health, what do you mean by that? Besides maybe fatigue or
Really
pain?
pain, needing to be out on disability for various reasons. So women, for example, are more likely to have migraines, to, things like endometriosis and PMS and menopause and how they can impact your overall well-being. And then, arthritis and things like that, the autoimmune disorders that are more common in women. So,
It it does make you, as a woman, get a little angry
yeah,
about the
yeah.
state of what's not only available for you or not available for you, but just
Hmm.
really the breadth of knowledge and the desire to seek the knowledge
Right. Yeah.
just
Yeah.
hasn't been there for so long.
Yeah. Yeah. But hopefully we're getting there.
So,
Things like this will
do
help
you
to, yeah.
sense that we're on the cusp of change or
I,
great change?
I do think so. And I think, number one, just having information like that out there, that there is this gap, does get people angry, right? And
Yeah.
then it makes them start to think we need to change this, and how can we change this? And one of the areas is, just legislation even, right? So, for example, in Maryland right now, there's a bill that is, there are sort of three components to it. One is that employees would need to consider menopause-related issues as another chronic health issue, so that using that diagnosis should be allowed for disability if needed. And also that as far as education, that providers need to be better educated about menopause-related issues, and so requiring a certain percent of continuing medical education be offered in menopause-related things. And then also that requiring insurance to cover menopause codes to allow for office visits and for medications. So things like that are starting to happen, which is really encouraging. Actually, I didn't even know about that until, a couple months ago that I heard that this was happening. And then when I looked at it more, in Illinois, they've declared a menopause awareness week in the
Wow,
October.
times they are changing.
Exactly, exactly. So, so I do think that there are changes that will be happening, but a lot to still do.
I think this is the first time too, and this is, for better and for worse. There's been a lot of people questioning the medical community, the establishment, really wondering about what they've been told over the years, what to believe. And I get the sense from you that you feel it's kind of more important than ever to have this sort of level of transparency when you're not only dealing with your patients, but anyone you're speaking to about, because there's so much that we can learn from you.
Right.
And to have some preconceived notion about the whole medical community now, you're missing out on valuable information. And it's almost like you speaking out and talking about women's health and what you're passionate about is almost a PR campaign for just every doctor who's trying to do the same.
Right, right. Yeah, and hopefully encourage everybody to talk about it. And also, yes, the providers are an important aspect of healthcare, but as the patient, it's also partially your responsibility too, right? And so to have that knowledge, to know, and to not be afraid to speak up and ask the questions, and to find the right provider
And
for
this
you.
is where I think a podcast like this really comes into play. It is up to the patient to or the woman to take control of her health, to educate herself as best she can, even in the middle of a busy life. And so this kind of gives them the information in which to do that, because right now there's so much information that is a little bit of overload, and it's hard to know what to believe.
Right,
And I
right.
still know plenty of women who say, no one told me that, or I heard the complete opposite. And so you almost have to keep beating that drum to get some really good, solid,
Right.
trusted information out
Yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah. And I think just, educating yourself and listening and but also encouraging and asking the questions of the providers so that then they educate themselves as well. So it's kind of a full circle.
So when we do this podcast and we talk about different issues, and next time we're going to talk about hormone replacement, which is obviously a big issue, and there's so many subsets of that issues that concern that. What are you hoping that people watching or listening will take away it broadly? And also, are you hoping to have some interaction and just some conversation about what we talk about? I mean,
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I hope that in general, women and not just women, hopefully men are listening too, because, you need to understand your partner and all the important women in your life to know how to help them. And one of the things that is part of the reason for the gap in women's health care is because of sort of difficulty in women getting care, because of sort of our role in life and access. And if we look at, for example, women are less likely through their job to have medical insurance than men. And also there's non-financial barriers too, like how do you get to your appointment? What do you do about childcare? What do you do about, who else you might be caring for? And so to have support in the community, not just for the individual person, but think about the whole community to make sure that we are making healthcare accessible to women as well as men, as well as everybody, no matter where you live. And
yeah. Boy, the barriers that women face really was so apparent during COVID. That they turned out to be, the ones who had to be home with the kids,
Right,
and
right.
and juggling work,
Yep.
oftentimes, and this is not to put down the men, but it's just the way it played out.
Right.
Yeah, you can see how their health would maybe take a back seat to many of the other things that are part of their responsibilities,
Absolutely.
culturally
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
historically.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. So.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
great. Well, we're thrilled to be doing this. I'm so excited. We're going to be talking about hormone replacement the next time, and again, we'll be just sort of taking a broad view of it, because as common as it is to say HRT or hormone replacement, if you ask someone really what it is and what it's for and why we need it, it's kind of hard to kind of verbalize that.
Right.
So you're
Good
going to give us a
point. Yeah.
real overview of,
Yeah.
and not only that, but what is menopause? When does it happen? What are some of the effects? They're wide ranging. I mean, women go through so many. Everyone's different.
Right.
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 So. In full bloom, we hope that you continue to join us for our next podcast, which is on hormone replacement. And we also hope that you listen, watch, tell a friend. They'll be living on YouTube as well. So if you want to go back and listen again, because sometimes there's so much information that you want to take in, and people tend to want to listen to what is specifically affecting them in the moment.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So we hope you will join us. Connect with us on social media for more tips and updates. And is there anything else you'd like to add about looking forward to our podcast?
Yeah, I'm just anxious to be able to, we talked about gaps today, but there's also a lot of really exciting things that are happening in women's health. And so hopefully we'll be able to share all of that with people too. So,
Absolutely. Dr. Joan Blomquist, a pleasure.
likewise.
All
Thank
right.
you.
We'll see you soon.
All right.